I want to make sure that we get to kind of our panel. And what we want to talk about first is kind of the importance of these relationships between industry and the clinical community, right? So Dave, let's start with you in terms of, can you speak based on your experience as a CEO of, I believe it's the 5th largest orthopedic group in the country, like why these kinds of relationships are so important?
So if I can take a second and preface that by saying, first of all, I want to thank JP for asking me. So I am a shoulder patient. I've had 6 rotator cuff surgeries, and most of you would say, well, why do you keep trying? Because the biology is off. But I hope innovation does solve the problems that I have. It's real to me. Spending the last 10 years as chair at Dartmouth, I spent every Wednesday afternoon looking at implants that were sent to our lab, including shoulder implants that failed. And you have lots of room for innovation in the shoulder space for sure, I can tell you that. To answer Alan's question, however, I left academic medicine because I could not innovate for the value in healthcare delivery that I hope to achieve. And we didn't talk that much about that tonight, but that's my goal. And I think that I can only accomplish that in the model that I'm in, which is a large practice group where I have control over all components of the healthcare delivery system. And I couldn't do that at Dartmouth. But I need our colleagues and the people that I collaborate with to realize that the future is not the same as the past. Our relationship with vendors in the past has always been transactional. We did a case, you created a PO or an invoice, we paid that. That's not the relationship I want with our vendors and collaborators for the innovative ways that we're trying to create value within our system, the ways that we're trying to measure quality, the way we're trying to measure patient-reported outcomes, and ultimately be able to measure value on a bigger and larger basis. To this point, I believe that as orthopedic surgeons, we have ceded value to everybody else except for ourselves. And our goal is to try to bring that back to us, but we need collaboration from the people that work in our space.
So I think from the industry perspective, so I work in marketing. I have an opportunity to partner with a fantastic research and development team, but I really like Dr. Gerber's note, or maybe the comment on an idea is generally generated by one person, but the maturation and validation and reality of that idea becomes much more powerful when a team is behind it. And I think what we see from industry, I mean, we have done this time and again with designing surgeons, that becomes reality each and every time we develop a project, that maybe one surgeon comes with intellectual property, but then we build a team around it, and that continuity throughout development. I think even the original idea or the surgeon that brought that to us is shocked at how far it matured, or maybe how far it even deviated from what they thought it would originally become, based upon the inputs and general collective thinking of the group. And I think that comes from the interaction of the surgeons together, but also with our technical team. And we've had the opportunity to work with some people in this room in that space. And I think it's a really powerful partnership that we can have. And I'll say one other thing quickly is it's not just about product, right? I think there are other things that we can help the health system do from an innovation perspective that is driven through value of how we contract, or how we think about capital within a system, and how you can be financially responsible and cover that through different costs of implants and so forth. So there's a lot of ways to think innovatively and continue to partner together.
Tim?
Yeah, really hard to add a whole lot more. That's really a lot of great stuff. I think maybe just to add, obviously when we think about innovation, we need these partnerships and relationships because you add tremendous value from a clinical perspective. And we need that, especially as we start to think about design and development of technology, medical education and training. But I think there's one other that I wanted to mention, this one other element that we've really tried to focus on, and that is engaging our surgeon partners and collaborating with them in helping us steer and guide the ship, so to speak. So strategy. We spend a lot of time with our strategic advisory board, which is made up of a team of surgeons. So I love your comment and Professor Gerber's comment about the team approach. We have a team approach, and you don't always agree, and so there's always great debate and discussion around how to get alignment, which helps us, I think, even the quality of that process, I think, helps us get to where we need to be from an innovative standpoint. but from a strategy and just, a broader advisory group to help us figure out how to solve problems. All right, so it's not just about designing and developing the technology, but as a company, we got problems. We heard one tonight from Ron, this concept of how we track instrumentation. For industry, the most difficult thing for us is to put all these instruments and implants in your hand. It is incredibly expensive to capitalize an orthopedic business. So understanding how to be innovative and finding ways to improve, some of the processes as well, and provide steerage and guidance around how we think about strategy. Those are all really important elements to the relationship that I think we've found a lot of value in as well.
Great, thank you. So when we think about things from a compliance perspective and managing the complexity of the industry and surgeon relationship, Ben, can you speak to that?
Yeah, I think that was mine. You want me to take that?
Okay,
yeah.
That's fine.
Okay, good. So, compliance obviously is really important, and it's become more and more important, specifically over the last 15 or 20 years. All of us in industry, we spend a lot of time, especially if you're a publicly traded company, you spend a lot of time managing some of the compliance requirements. I know at Stryker, we're a very compliant company. Everything we do with integrity in mind. It's a part of our values. As a medical device company, we all have to be subject to a lot of laws and rules and compliance requirements and all kinds of codes. And there's immense oversight by the Department of Justice, by the FDA, and all kinds of governing bodies to make sure that we remain compliant. So it's not unlike one of those governing bodies to show up at your door unannounced, ready to audit your business practices. That is not a fun process. So you better make sure that you have everything in order at that time. So that actually happens. So a couple things that we do, obviously, we need to make sure that our employees understand what those laws and rules and codes are. So we have a code of conduct of which we train all of our employees every year on to make sure everybody understands how to interact and engage with HCPs and other healthcare professionals that keep us compliant and keep us within the laws and the boundaries that have been set forth. Secondly, we all heard about AdvaMed. I think, my industry partners and Stryker, we're all part of AdvaMed. AdvaMed is a trade association that's really designed to advance medical technology. You may not think that, but that's actually the case. And the way they are doing it is to ensure that we are compliant, that we have a set of codes that govern how we operate and engage with HCPs, taking into account all of these laws and rules and regulations that are out there. And also to make sure that they are representing the patient, and the patient is top of mind at all times. So I'll give you an example of how this can really have an impact on innovation. So I have two boys. I have two boys that they work for a medical device company. This medical device company has been, they've been in an investigation for about 3 years. And over 3 years, they've paid a lot of money in settlements, okay? What happens is that company, they were leaders in their markets, in their segments. And over the past 3 or 4 years, what's happened is that now that they've paid these huge settlements, and you can go Google medical device companies that have settled with the DOJ. They are extremely expensive settlements. They're not $1 million here, $1 million there. Well, what happens is when you get caught up in one of those situations, something is going to take a hit. And more than likely, it's going to be R&D, amongst others. And so that begins to stifle and impair how we think about innovation and interactions with our surgeons that have great ideas that now we can't really support in developing and bringing to market. So we spend a lot of time recognizing the punitive damages to the business if we get caught up in a compliant situation, and making sure that we protect our surgeons and their ideas and how we think about helping them bring those ideas to the marketplace and taking care of patients and improving the technology available. So,
I'll add maybe another layer of compliance, and that's the regulatory side. And actually, Dr. Putnam mentioned this earlier. Obviously, globally, as we're all global medical device companies, we face different regulations, right? Different requirements, different burdens of evidence, and so forth to promote our products in an on-label manner. And what Europe is doing from a CE mark perspective in the transition from their medical device directive to MDR is putting a very high burden of evidence, proactive evidence, whereas in the past we may have launched products first in Europe and then bring them to the United States. We'll be collecting data in the US for 12 to 18 to 24 months before launching things globally under, in situations where every single indication or application has to have clinical evidence. There's no longer a situation of general soft tissue approximation to bone. It's, I need to understand it in rotator cuff, in Achilles repair, and having all of that, so that the cost burden that's actually borne by industry to try to promote these in an on-label way, in collaboration with surgeons collecting the data on patients and so forth. We're also trying to battle that, and how do we remain innovative, have a sufficiently robust portfolio to give you all of the tools that you want to do all of the procedures as creatively as you can whenever we have some of those constraints. So it is a true prioritization battle that we are now taking money that we would have otherwise funneled through innovation and new pipeline products to help sustain the products that are on the market, right? And do that in a responsible way as well. So it's an ever evolving dynamic globally, and we're trying to adapt the way we think about innovation and prioritizing our portfolio decisions based upon some of those regulatory compliance aspects as well.
I'll just add a quick comment from a practice side of things. So when I was at Dartmouth, I never quite understood the people that are always looking over our shoulder about compliance. Now that I run a different organization, I can tell you that we have insurance for things like this if it's an honest mistake. If it's a criminal activity, guess what? We have no insurance that covers what we do. Although we're a many hundreds of millions of dollars company, we cannot take too many of these kinds of fines. We could not tolerate it. Wouldn't work for us. And I don't generally worry about the big companies. The big companies have strong policies. They're really good. It's the new smaller companies. When you have 160 surgeons, I can't keep track of what every one of them is trying to do. It can be really, really challenging. So it is a big issue on our side of it, not just on the vendor side of it as well.
So final question here, and I think I have this right now with Ben. So when we think about kind of creating a culture of innovation and kind of how you can use culture as a tool to drive innovation, not only internally on behalf of the teams that are working inside of the organization, but obviously in relationship to the partnerships that Dave just spoke to.
Yeah, medical device or medical technology development, I think it's a grind, right? When you look at how regulated it is, the process that we go through, and I don't know what the right ratio is, but 80-20 rule, like 20% of actual innovation and 80% paperwork and documentation that we have to build as the burden of evidence to take a product to market. It's probably, all of our new product development teams would probably say it's more like 5 and 95 or something like that, right? But it's a really high burden. So how do we stimulate our teams to kind of overcome that for the greater good? And that is the challenge that we face each and every day. And I think one of the things that we try to do at J&J and within DePuy Synthes is, stimulating that innovation comes from everywhere. There's a stereotype that only the R&D engineers are the true innovators, and I think that is not further from the truth. We have quality engineers that step in to lead programs and projects and take those things to market, and we try to spread that innovative mindset across our teams within regulatory, clinical, quality, and even our manufacturing teams as we try to develop things. And I'd say, and it ultimately translates even to our sales team, because we have to be innovative in that mindset as well. So I think it's how do we best stimulate that type of culture. And then for our R&D folks, like we do things like Shark Tank, where we'll put them in rooms and they can come up with new ideas and position and present their ideas out, and then that will spawn potentially new priority opportunities that we hadn't previously thought about. So trying to create an environment where people can have the tinker time to do what they need to do to be innovative and feel innovative and be inspired to do their day-to-day jobs.
Yeah, I think I feel pretty fortunate because, you know, I get a chance to lead the Tournier organization, which I think has this legacy history of having this amazing culture that was really created by the Tournier family, along with Gilles Balch and Pascal Belot. So, you know, I think they really showed us how it's done. And really, if you think about how they did it, it was this combination of industry and surgeons coming together to look at how to meet unmet needs in shoulder arthroplasty. And today, what you have is this amazing portfolio of technology that is now helping these surgeons. And that technology is not just within Tournier. I think they've led the way, which has helped create other companies that have had that have followed suit as well. But I think what I will just add to this is, as I mentioned before, what we've tried to do is we have tried to have a strategic advisory board, a set of advisors that really help us figure out what it is that we should be doing. We never take for granted that we understand what's best, or we know where we should be going, to your point, where R&D engineers are sitting and thinking they know better than the surgeons. That is not the culture we have. And beyond that, we have a set of advisors in an expanded role that are doing a lot of the design work. We spend a lot of time with them. We take their input, and we just don't take it to make them feel good. Many of you have been involved in some of that work. We take that feedback and we apply it. And I think if you do that, you will build a culture where innovation can spawn within your organization. But I think also the surgeons have a great time spending time together because they get a chance to talk about ideas. They get a chance to debate some of the philosophies within shoulder arthroplasty and find ways to gain alignment and ways in which we can solve problems and create these amazing products. So that's something I think we've done that's really served us well.
Any questions from the audience?
Yeah, right after David, we're going to open it up. Thank you.
The only thing I would add is that obviously implant design, innovation, very sexy, can be very lucrative. I just hope in the future there's as much initiative about innovating for value delivery, measuring outcomes, getting back to Codman's original tenets. You don't make a lot of money doing those things, but it ultimately is what's best serves our patients. So I hope there's as much or more emphasis in those areas as well.
Great. Thank you. Okay.
This is Matt Putnam again, and I just wanted to thank, I don't know where JP is, right there, I guess you are, but it's from a physician's perspective who now works in industry, and I do have a number of patents and invented stuff starting more than 30 years ago, but that's not my point because I didn't work in his industry then. Now, for 6 years, I've worked inside J&J, giant organization, and I will tell you one of the things that, because I've still had a chance to go back and teach at the University of Minnesota, and once in a while, students will say something like, oh, the company doesn't get me, or they'll kind of almost lament their job as a physician. But what I've learned is how hard all of the people that Ben and Tim are talking about, especially the young engineers, work every day. They're more afraid of losing their job than any physician is. I mean, it's really been driven home to me how dedicated they are, how hard they work at night, and how much time that they all spend on this issue of compliance, but not sort of like to dot T's and I's. And this is kind of what I try to teach the medical students when I still have a chance to interact with them. They're wanting to do this very best job thing because most of the courses I've taken, I'm telling you the real number here, over 450 hours of learning in just 6 years on how to actually do my job well. A lot of it has to do with compliance. And it's like CME, only you have to take a test every time. So Ben can nod, and there's like real tests, and you don't know the answer. So the company that I've been in, I think, is mirrored by Stryker and several other industry leaders in that they take this job so seriously. Any single product, take a shoulder arthroplasty, has a design failure mode effects analysis file. Each one of those files is sometimes 1,000 lines, Excel lines, long. And then there's this grading sheet. Well, will it go wrong? Like the sterility barrier, will it be broken? Or all these other things that can break with the product? And they have to all fall to, we've made it as low as possible, or it's an acceptable risk. Anytime it remains a red risk, we got to keep working the product. And it's been kind of this amazing journey for myself as it relates to how hard the companies work to give you the products you use every day, and then how hard these young engineers and people in marketing and actual just sales that out in the field, like that crazy diagram that before IPT showed of all the little interconnections where the sets are. And it's the kind of thing that's made me a lot more, I would say, not just aware, but humble about the industry that I worked in for a long time, and that we have to do jobs. And you guys are all in this position. That's a marvelous position where you're still out teaching, but you can actually, what JP is doing, bring this to the students, the medical students, the residents, the fellows, just what a wonderful interaction it is. And by bringing this forward where you have industry here, this is something that didn't go on a lot when I was learning. We weren't really aware of what industry did with us. But thank you. I appreciate being here.
You have to ask it. Lanny doesn't want to ask a question because it's inflammatory, so ask it. No? Oh, well. Okay, well, Christian will ask it, and for certain it'll be inflammatory.
Certainly will be inflammatory. That was like a sales pitch, I thought. Anyway, you know, just for you to know, the perception for certain surgeons, probably a very small minority amongst that one I am, the perception is a bit different. The perception is that the big companies wait until a small company has made a very good idea, and then they buy it at as low a price as possible, and they market it. But R&D products out of these small companies of these huge companies seem to be rather rare, unless it's companies like Tournier, which are run by a single person who decides. And the surgeons at a certain level, now there may be surgeons who are X times better than I am, but as a surgeon, a simple surgeon like me, he never gets to a level that he can really promote a product and impose a product. And I think that surgeons are, it is not true that surgeons feel that the big companies are really interested in greater innovations, but the perception is that they are extremely risk averse. Is that inflammatory enough, or?
You want me to take a first response, Tim, and then maybe you can give your thoughts. So when you look at how we perceive innovation and the opportunities, I think there are three levers that we look to explore. The first of which is what you just said, a business development or acquisition licensing type approach where it makes sense for truly innovative technology that's addressing a key unmet need for which it may take us years to develop or catch up. And sometimes there are things that we're not even thinking about that happily come across our radar, our dashboard, and we're like, that is something that we want to go after. So we have a mindset to look externally. I think we have a mindset to partner, to just do external design development with firms that can go faster sometimes than we can, because we'll admit, and I think as a large company, we have a lot more processes and a lot more infrastructure and things that we have to navigate through to do that internal innovation, which is kind of the third pillar. And we look to have a balance of all three of those. So, we have two products within our sports medicine division right now where we've had partner design surgeons that'll launch within the next 12 months or so that have been totally organic internal innovation. And then we've developed things in that middle path of design development, partnering with a firm that can do it quickly. And then, we try to find strategic acquisitions where it makes sense. So, and I think it is a balance of risk. And, we'll probably both admit to being, more risk averse just because of the expectations of that large corporate mentality and so forth. But it's a balance of all three for sure.
Yeah, and what I would tell you is that both of them need each other. The big companies need the small companies innovating, and the little companies need the big companies, because the challenge we have is, to what Ben said, is it's harder for us to be fast and agile in development of technology because of the regulations and the processes and the risk to challenges with the DOJ and others. On the flip side, the small companies, their challenge is they may have a great idea, they can only get it to a certain point. They can't scale. They don't have the wherewithal financially to scale, so they need the big companies. So it works for both of us. The small companies innovate, the big companies buy them. And everybody wins when you do that, because those in the small company that were responsible for the innovation, they get a chance to win financially at the end of the game. So,
And thank goodness for that. I just want to make one other comment, and that is that, we've left out of this equation, all the responsibilities that companies have to shareholders, to society, et cetera, which is part of the mix here. It isn't just about companies and surgeons. And I think we have the understanding of that. There's more of an empathy and understanding from physicians about what you guys have to deal with relative to what we want to accomplish. And I don't think that's well appreciated by many physicians. Just my opinion. So I think that wraps it for us. I thank everybody for coming. I'm very grateful that you took your time, and I think this was a really interesting session.